Every single day, your body hands you one of the clearest health reports you'll ever get. And every single day, most people flush it away in under 3 seconds without even glancing at it. Your stool is not just waste, it's the end product of digestion, nutrient absorption, bile processing, gut bacteria activity, and toxin elimination, all rolled into one. It can warn you about food intolerances, liver problems, pancreatic issues, infections, and even early-stage colon cancer, often weeks or months before any other symptom shows up. The problem? Almost no one knows what they're looking at. So by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what a healthy stool looks like, the 3 things to check every time, the 5 warning colors that mean something is off, and the 1 sign that always means you need to see a doctor, no exceptions. Here's something worth understanding before we go any further. Your gut is the largest interface between your body and the outside world. Everything you eat, drink, swallow, or absorb passes through it. And everything your body decides to get rid of, leftover food, dead cells, processed toxins, excess cholesterol, broken down hormones, byproducts from your liver, exits through the same channel. That's why ancient medical traditions, going back thousands of years, kept circling back to the same idea. The gut sits at the center of overall health. Modern science has only reinforced this. We now know the gut influences immunity, mental health, hormone balance, inflammation, and metabolism. And the final output of all that activity is sitting in the toilet bowl, waiting to be looked at. Here's the framework we're going to use. There are 3 primary things to check: frequency, form, and color. Then there are 4 secondary signals that fill in the picture: smell, whether it floats or sinks, shape, and what's actually in it. Master these 7 checks, and you have a daily health dashboard most people never use. Let's start with the simplest one: how often you go. The normal range is wider than most people think. Anywhere from 3 times a week to 3 times a day is considered healthy. That's a huge spread, and it exists because frequency depends on a lot of moving parts: how much water you drink, how much fiber you eat, how active you are, your stress levels, your sleep schedule, your caffeine intake, and even whether you're traveling. So if your neighbor goes twice a day and you go every other day, that doesn't mean one of you is broken. What matters is your personal baseline and whether evacuation feels complete. That's the real marker. You should feel like your bowels actually emptied, not like there's still something hanging around in there. Now, the edges. Going more than 3 times a day with loose, watery consistency is diarrhea. Going fewer than 3 times a week with hard, dry stool, straining, and that frustrating feeling of incomplete evacuation is constipation. Both extremes matter. Chronic constipation can lead to hemorrhoids, anal fissures, diverticula in the colon wall, and reabsorption of waste compounds your body was trying to get rid of. Chronic diarrhea can point to malabsorption, infections, inflammatory bowel disease, or food intolerances, and it dehydrates you fast. Here's the practical takeaway. Track your pattern for 1 week. Just note it mentally. Once you know you're normal, you'll instantly notice when something shifts, and that's the whole point. Now for the second pillar, form. What does it actually look like? There's a clinical tool used by doctors and researchers worldwide called the Bristol Stool Scale. It sorts stool into 7 types based on shape and consistency, and it's one of the fastest ways to read what's happening inside your digestive tract. Let's walk through all 7. Type 1 is hard, separate little pellets, almost like small nuts or rabbit droppings. They're difficult to pass, and they look that way because they sat in your colon for too long and got dehydrated. This is severe constipation. Type 2 is lumpy and sausage-shaped, basically multiple type 1 pellets stuck together. Still constipation, just slightly less severe. Type 3 is sausage-shaped but with cracks on the surface. It's borderline normal. You're close, but your hydration or fiber intake could probably use a small boost. Type 4 is the gold standard. Smooth, soft, sausage or snake-like, easy to pass. This is what you want most days. It tells you transit time, hydration, and fiber are all in the right zone. Type 5 is soft blobs with clean edges, easy to pass. Also normal. It just means your transit is slightly faster than type 4, which can happen after a high-fiber meal or extra water. Type 6 is mushy, fluffy, with ragged edges. This is mild diarrhea. It often points to a food intolerance. Lactose and fructose are two of the most common culprits, or a temporary irritation. Type 7 is entirely liquid with no solid pieces at all. This is full diarrhea, and if it lasts more than a day or two or comes with fever, blood, or severe pain, it needs medical attention. The simple summary: aim for types 3, 4, and 5. Types 1 and 2 mean you're constipated. Types 6 and 7 mean something is irritating your gut. There are two more form-related signals worth knowing. Pencil-thin stools that show up consistently can indicate a narrowing somewhere in the colon and should always be checked out. And if you spot undigested food, corn is the classic example, it usually just means fast transit and not enough chewing. Not a problem unless it's happening with every meal. Now we get to the most informative pillar of all: color. This is where your stool tells you the most about what's happening upstream in your liver, gallbladder, pancreas, stomach, and intestines. Brown is the goal. That classic milk chocolate brown comes from a pigment called stercobilin, which is produced when bile, the digestive fluid your liver makes, gets broken down as it travels through your intestines. Brown means the whole bile pathway is working, transit time is reasonable, and nothing dramatic is going on. Now let's look at the colors that can be normal but sometimes aren't. Green is the first one. If you eat a lot of leafy greens, spinach, kale, broccoli, arugula, or anything with green food coloring, green stool is completely expected. Chlorophyll is green, and it doesn't fully break down in transit. But if you haven't eaten anything green and your stool is still green, it usually means food is moving through your gut too fast for the bile to finish breaking down. That happens during diarrhea, after antibiotics, or with certain infections. Yellow is the second one. Eating a lot of carrots, sweet potatoes, or turmeric can tint your stool yellow, and that's harmless. There's also a genetic condition called Gilbert's syndrome that can cause a yellowish tint, and it's mostly benign. But yellow stool that's also greasy, floating, foul-smelling, and hard to flush is a different story. That's a sign your body isn't absorbing fat properly, which can point to issues with the pancreas, gallbladder, bile ducts, or conditions like celiac disease. Now the warning colors, these are the ones you don't ignore. Black and tar-like, dark, sticky, with a distinctive strong odor. This is called melena, and it usually means there's bleeding somewhere in the upper digestive tract, the stomach, esophagus, or small intestine. By the time the blood reaches the toilet, it's been partially digested, which is what turns it black. Ulcers, gastritis, esophageal varices, and stomach tumors can all cause it. The exceptions: iron supplements, large amounts of blueberries, dark chocolate, black licorice, and certain medications can darken stool without it being blood. But if you didn't take any of those, get it checked. Pale or clay-colored. When stool loses its brown pigment entirely and looks like wet clay or putty, it usually means bile isn't reaching the intestine. That points to problems in the liver, gallbladder, or bile ducts, hepatitis, gallstones, or an obstruction. Red or bloody. Bright red blood means the bleeding is lower in the digestive tract, the colon, rectum, or anus. Hemorrhoids and fissures are common and benign, but diverticula, inflammatory bowel disease, and colorectal tumors also cause bleeding. Beets and red food dye can mimic this, but never assume. And this next part is the most important thing in the entire video. Any blood in your stool, bright red, dark, or black and tar-like, needs to be evaluated by a doctor. Period. Don't assume it's hemorrhoids. Don't wait to see if it goes away. Early-stage colorectal cancer is one of the most treatable cancers when caught early and one of the deadliest when caught late. The single biggest reason it gets caught late is people brushing off blood in the toilet because they figured it was something minor. The check is simple, the cost is low, and the upside is enormous. Now let's move on to the 4 secondary signals that complete the picture. Float or sink. A healthy stool generally sinks. What makes it float is excess gas or excess fat. Occasional floating after a bean-heavy meal or a fiber spike is nothing to worry about. But stool that consistently floats, looks greasy, leaves an oily film on the water, and is hard to flush points to fat malabsorption, and that connects back to the pancreas, gallbladder, or small intestine. Smell. Yes, all stool smells. That's not the point. The point is the change. If your stool suddenly takes on an extremely foul, sulfur-like, or rotten odor that's noticeably different from your normal, it can indicate bacterial overgrowth, infection, or poor digestion. Day-to-day variation from red meat, garlic, eggs, or spicy food is normal. A persistent, dramatic shift is not. Mucus or pus. A small amount of mucus is normal. Your intestines produce it to keep things moving smoothly. But visible streaks of mucus, especially combined with blood or pus, can indicate inflammation, infection, or inflammatory bowel disease. If this shows up alongside acute diarrhea and abdominal pain, it can be bacterial dysentery, which needs medical treatment. Shape changes. We touched on this earlier, but it's worth repeating. Persistently pencil-thin or ribbon-like stools can signal a narrowing somewhere in the colon and need to be investigated. Let's pull all of this together into a single checklist you can actually remember. If you notice any of the following, don't wait. Don't tell yourself it's probably nothing. Get checked. 1. Any blood in your stool, bright red, dark red, or black and tar-like. No exceptions, no assumptions. 2. Pale or clay-colored stool that sticks around for more than a few days, especially if your skin or the whites of your eyes start looking yellow. 3. Persistently pencil-thin or ribbon-shaped stools. 4. A sudden, unexplained change in your bowel habits that lasts longer than 2 to 3 weeks, whether that's new constipation, new diarrhea, or just a pattern that's clearly different from your normal. 5. Greasy, foul-smelling stool that floats and won't flush, especially if it comes with unexplained weight loss. 6. Severe abdominal pain combined with any of the above. Here's the mindset to carry with you. The goal isn't to live in fear of your toilet. The vast majority of digestive changes have simple, fixable causes: a virus, a food you didn't tolerate, a stressful week. But the cost of checking is low, and the cost of ignoring can be everything. Now, before we get into building a healthier gut, I want to share something with you that genuinely surprised me when I came across it. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Most people watching this video right now have somewhere between 5 and 10 pounds of old, toxic waste built up in their intestines that simply isn't moving the way it should. That's the real reason behind the bloating, the sluggishness, the irregular trips to the bathroom, and the heavy feeling after meals. And here's the part that defies everything you've been told. There's a strange 8,000-year-old gut compound used by more than 3 billion people around the world that helps your body fully eliminate that backed-up waste and restart proper digestion. No restrictive diets, no expensive probiotics, no medications, just one pinch before your meals. Some people are reporting going to the bathroom 2 or even 3 times a day within days of starting it, even while eating almost zero fiber. It sounds backwards, but the science behind it is solid. I'm not going to try to explain the whole thing here because it deserves its own full breakdown. So if you want to see exactly how it works and why it's working for so many people, just point your phone's camera at the QR code on the screen right now, and it'll take you straight to the full video. I'll also drop the link pinned in the comments below this video so you can find it either way. Watch it when you have a few quiet minutes. It's worth your attention. All right, now let's flip from warning signs to what actually builds a healthy gut. Most of what shows up in the toilet is the result of a handful of daily habits. Water. Hydration is the single biggest lever on stool form. Most cases of mild constipation resolve just by drinking more water consistently throughout the day. Not chugging 2 glasses at once, but steady intake from morning to evening. Fiber. Aim for a mix of soluble fiber found in oats, beans, apples, and chia seeds, and insoluble fiber found in whole grains, leafy greens, and the skins of fruits and vegetables. A general target is around 25 to 35 grams per day, ramped up slowly so your gut can adjust. Movement. Physical activity directly stimulates the muscles that move waste through your colon. A brisk 20-minute walk after meals does more for your digestion than most supplements ever will. Chewing. Underrated and free. Slower, more thorough chewing reduces the workload on every step downstream. Sleep and stress. The gut-brain axis is real. Poor sleep and chronic stress disrupt motility, alter your microbiome, and increase inflammation. Protect both. Limit the noise. Cut back on ultra-processed foods, excessive alcohol, and unnecessary medications, especially long-term antibiotic and acid blocker use, which can quietly reshape your gut bacteria over time. And finally, the daily audit. Before you flush, take 5 seconds. Just look. Check the form, check the color, notice if anything seems different from yesterday. That's it. That's the whole practice. Your body is talking to you every single day through one of the most underrated signals you have access to. Most people ignore it for their entire lives and only start paying attention when something has already gone wrong. You don't have to be one of them. The goal isn't paranoia, it's awareness. 5 seconds of attention can catch problems years before they would otherwise force their way into your life. And in a world where almost every health signal requires a device, an app, or a lab test, this one is free, instant, and waiting for you tomorrow morning.